Hello and welcome to this brief introduction to the 18th century. The I do apologize for the number of presentations that I have given to you. Always remember that the presentations are there to supplement the reading and to fill in the blanks, but the presentations from Dr. Eugene Weber, the Western tradition, those to me are the most important because he tends to do an excellent job of summarizing the key events, ideas, and artwork of the particular periods that we're looking at. So I would definitely encourage you to watch those. I think it'll help contextualize what the book has to say. I don't like criticizing the book because it does so many wonderful things, but in this particular situation, the presentation in the book, I think, is a little bit problematic, and I understand the editors have a limited format. I actually did some writing for a textbook company in Austin many years ago, so I know the limitations involved in constructing chapters and sections of textbooks. The problem is that the 18th century is perhaps the most complicated of all the centuries. Well, prior to the 19th, right? It is, I think, the most complicated period we've looked at. The Renaissance is not especially complicated, I'll be honest with you. There's a lot going on, but it's not a complicated period. The 18th century is not only complicated, but it's contradictory. So we have neoclassicism and Rococo. Those are almost contradictory art forms. They do have some elements in common, but their aims and their values are different. So let me go ahead and in the next slide give you a kind of sense of the general main idea that I think is running through the 18th century, and that would be the idea of the Enlightenment. The quote in this slide, "God said, let Newton be and all was light," is from Alexander Pope, who is very well represented in your reading, though, as I would always argue, not adequately represented. Again, one of the problems with such a rich period is that representation is often too brief. I have here an image of a very complicated machine, a mechanism. It is sort of an astral clock. Why do I have this here? Because this, in many respects, represents the overarching belief system of the 18th century. Now, remember, there are always going to be dissenters in any given ideological framework. But the 18th century, often referred to as the Age of Reason or the Enlightenment, the Enlightenment is the better term to use here, assumed that all things could be explained through reason, that reason, the application of reason, not just in the sciences, but in all areas of human activity, could cast light and understanding on all the questions that human beings have ever had. The power of science to explain the physical universe, according to a set of regulated and uniform laws, inspired thinkers beyond science to apply that same kind of mentality to problems in the human sphere. So as you can see, this is a very complex machine, and the universe to us and human life to us seems very complex. But the principles behind this machine that allow it to function are very simple, right? They're very fundamental, And despite the complexity of the machine, the principles are simple. And they can be simply by analyzing the mechanism, you can understand how it works. This is the way science in the 17th and 18th century approached the physical universe, and to some degree it still approaches that physical universe in the same way, but it's a little bit different now because science has become a bit more complex and its discoveries have called into question some of their procedures and methods. But during the Newtonian universe, everything people believed was like a clock. Everything in the universe ran regularly according to a set of laws. If the human being is part of the universe, then the human being must also conform to the same kinds of laws, not just physically, but intellectually, emotionally, etc. And so you have a belief suddenly in the ability to perfect humankind through the application of reason, the identification of certain rational principles that guide human behavior. If you've ever used the term human nature, this is where that term originates. And it refers to specifically the idea that just as laws guide the universe and then they can be discovered through reason, laws govern human behavior, human nature, and therefore they can be discovered through reason. And once we discovered them, we can solve all of our problems. It is a wonderful vision. It is a vision, though, that has had a great deal of influence on all of our lives, including the foundation of the United States and most democratic governments in Western civilization. But I think that enough time has passed that history suggests that that this optimistic and progressive view of human beings that originated in the Enlightenment is probably not accurate. So, off to something else.